Let's see, today our first speaker for this afternoon session is Sujata Banerjee. She'll be talking about research challenges in cloud networking. Sujata is a distinguished technologist and research manager in the Networking Communications Lab in HP Labs up in Palo Alto. She conducts her research on enterprise, data center, and cloud networking. Prior to HP, she was associate professor at University of Pittsburgh. She's a recipient of the NSF Career Award in Networking Research and has served on the technical program committees of several conferences and workshops, including serving as general chair of the ACM Mobile SIS and the technical co-chair of the IEEE CENTCON conference. She holds 12 patents. She earned her PhD degree in electrical engineering here at USC. Her advisor was Victor Lee, and she has master's and bachelor degrees in electrical engineering from IIT Bombay. So please welcome Sujata.
Thank you very much. I'm really sorry that my presentation is going to be a little pink. I may have damaged this cable, and I don't have a spare one. That might be the reason, but it was working fine till yesterday. So it gives me great pleasure to be here, part of this celebration. It's been so fun already, meeting old friends and professors, and I'm hoping my advisor, Victor Lee, is going to be here, and also with Professor Vijay Kumar, I hope. It'll be great to see them as well. So my talk's going to be a little bit different from what we've heard today, but it completely builds on the historical retrospective that we heard this morning on all of the digitization, all of the technologies in transmitting a bit that we are now sort of building huge networks out of, and they impact our society in tremendous ways. It's all about apps, I think that's true. And the problem is the network actually needs to be redesigned significantly for all of those apps and for all of the increased communication needs that we have. So what I thought I would do is, before I start on talking about the topic at hand, I was going to give you a very brief introduction to HP Labs. This is where I work, and I'm not sure all of you know about the work that we do and the charter that we have. So HP Labs is the central research facility for HP as a whole. HP is a huge company in many, many countries, over 300,000 people. And our charter is to bring revolutionary technology, revolutionary changes to HP's businesses, sometimes undermining the current business as to make room for new businesses that hold HP in good hands for the future. And our role is actually very interesting. We're straddled in between academia and product groups, and one of our primary missions is to be able to build new technologies that we can transfer into our businesses. And so we've heard tech transfer a number of times the whole day, and I wanted to mention that that's one of the main things that we do. Our research areas, there are oh God, this is really not working that well at all. Maybe we do need to switch.
Do you want to keep talking while everything's on the other laptop?
Certainly. Okay. Let me give you the USB. Oh, this is really terrible. Pink would have been okay. I have a memory stick. Actually, it's not my favorite either, but I was going to make do, but this is not working at all.
You clearly don't like it.
Yeah.
So if you don't mind, just keep chatting.
Okay. Do you want me to convert to a PDF? I can do that.
We'll figure it out. We've got a couple of PhDs here.
Just a couple. So, okay, I will pretend you can see this. So we work in different areas that are essential to our businesses. Our businesses are pretty diverse, including printing and content delivery, mobile and immersive experiences, cloud and security, information analytics, intelligent infrastructure, sustainability, services, and networking. So these are the 8 themes that we've been working on. In the networking case, this is the primary lab I'm associated with, Network and Communications Lab, and this is the research arm for the networking business. HP has a pretty large networking business with some acquisitions that it has recently made as well. Do you need any help from me? Or?
No, go ahead.
Okay. So this was going to be, I'm almost not sure what you're seeing. What you're not seeing. This was a great chart that you're missing. So this is actually sort of doing a closer focus on what Dr. Viterbi was showing earlier on today.
So, let's see. Magic. Okay.
Whoa.
And now you go.
This is what it's supposed to look like.
Okay. Go
Okay.
up and down.
Okay.
Yeah.
Certainly.
Yeah. Arrows. Like this.
See, you would have missed this. Every 7 to 10 years or so, we've been seeing dramatic technology shifts in which applications are changing dramatically. The way we use applications, the way we consume applications are changing very significantly. And what we see is a transition from the mainframe client server to the internet, e-commerce, all of that, to mobile, social, big data world that we live in today. And guess what? The networking challenges have been sort of dramatically increasing as we have made this transition. I was actually trying to see where I was when I first came to USC, and there was no browser, there was no World Wide Web. The World Wide Web was just starting up at that time. I'm dating myself, I know, but that's okay. And the other numbers that you see on the right give you a sense of the dynamism that we are seeing today in our applications and services. And these numbers are dated already because this slide was made a few months ago. Every 60 seconds, a lot is happening. And the network has to keep up. And really what we are looking at is a dramatic increase in the speed of business. It used to be that you would wait 8 weeks to put together a server. Now we expect to do this in 5 minutes. You know about your own experiences with booking an airline ticket or a financial trade that you want to be able to do. And this is what is causing a lot of the changes in the way in which the computing infrastructure is being created. And so the main point that I want to say is that we are going from the mainframe to basically consolidated computing to a lot of the computing being hosted in data centers spread out over the world, and every application is now being exposed as a service. So we are basically going into an environment which is now beginning to be, it's called the cloud. It's the next evolution of IT infrastructures, and it's towards an everything as a service kind of a paradigm. And the thing about the cloud is it's a hyped up word, and there are a lot of connotations of this particular word, but really it comes in many different flavors. And if you look at the kind of IT infrastructures we've had is many enterprises have their own compute and network and storage infrastructure, and typically they are the only users. Network utilizations on these enterprise networks tend to be extremely low, but you have a lot of features that have been built into the network hardware, for example. You have very strong SLA requirements. You expect higher security, but it's typically used by a single tenant or user. The cost of maintaining this infrastructure is very high because you have staff on site that takes care of things when they break and whatnot, because you're trying to maintain very high quality of the infrastructure. Now, a lot of the reasons to move to the cloud are cost-based. You want to be able to consolidate infrastructure and go to a shared model. So when one particular user is not using using the infrastructure, somebody else can use it. So statistical multiplexing is basically what we are going towards. And so if you look to the right, and there's some variance in these different modes, private cloud, hosted private cloud, and so on. We don't need to go into that. But if you look to the right, the public cloud, which is the Amazon Web Services kind of a cloud that's out there, and there are many other vendors in the place, in the marketplace right now. It's multi-tenant, it's service-based, but you don't get as good quality of the, so it's mostly best effort, but it's also, you get it at a much lower cost. So what this means for cloud networking is it's almost the same thing, that on one side you have very feature-rich capabilities, it's less automated, it's less flexible, it's hard to scale. And on the right, you have much lower capital expenditure, operations expenses. It's much more agile, it's much more automated, but it's not as not capable of providing as high a performance guarantee, for example. It has fewer network features. So for example, in the public cloud, you don't have multicast capabilities in many cases. So really, what we are seeing is a set of cloud scale network requirements that are really difficult to provide with existing hardware capabilities that we have today. So we're trying to scale to thousands of tenants and thousands of servers, hundreds of thousands of virtual machines. So virtualization is a big trend, again, to promote sharing of infrastructure. You do want performance guarantees as you start taking your enterprise applications, the ones that you're very used to performing reliably, like your email or other services that you have in your enterprise, and moving them to the cloud would imply that you need to have performance guarantees. You also need to have a high degree of flexibility because these requirements will continue to change. New apps, as they come online, they have very different requirements. So a few years ago, we did not talk about applications such as MapReduce, Hadoop kinds of applications, but these are now becoming very important for the network to be able to support. Cost is key. If you provide a high-cost solution, then you're not going to be able to provide the kinds of bandwidth and services that you need, because it'll just be impossible from a cost perspective. Energy is, again, energy consumption in networking has not really been looked at as much, but that's becoming more and more important as the rest of the infrastructure becomes more and more power proportional, but the network does not. So, and then there are a whole bunch of these. The real challenge that I want to present here is that achieving all of these requirements simultaneously is very hard. And what I have here is with these blue and red dots is that your operating point may be able to optimize on 1 or 2 or 3 criteria, but may not be able to get to the other criteria. So some of the work that we are doing in HP Labs, but also in other research groups as well, is trying to understand how do we get these solutions to work in a way that you can meet all of these requirements together. So scale is the first challenge. I'm going to talk about a few challenges in the time that I have. And Ubli, I'm sorry, the time is short now. I'll try to get through this as quickly as possible. So the real problem here is that standards and hardware were designed for old requirements. A lot of what happens in networking is that we fix certain parameters. So 4,000 virtual LAN capability, which is baked into every switch that you have today, seemed to be a fine solution for the applications that we had before. But the moment you try to now use this VLAN capability to isolate different kinds of tenants, guess what? You can only have 4,000 tenant networks, and that's not sufficient, clearly. Similarly, for the number of hardware resources like queues and rate limiters, these were all designed and baked into the hardware based on the requirements that we had before, and now they don't really work. So it's hard to support new requirements of multi-tenancy, virtualization, and dynamicity. It's tremendous amount of churn in these kinds of environments. And what we are seeing right now is that this has been the first problem that has been tackled by a lot of people, including our group. There's lots and lots of recent work in this space. So maybe we shouldn't spend as much time on it and look at some of the new problems that we see. Performance predictability, I already talked about this before. This is a SIGCOMM paper from Microsoft last year, which did a study on different public cloud infrastructures to see what kind of bandwidth numbers they were seeing. And you can see a very high variability, sometimes up to 5x. And the goal is to provide each user or tenant with its own virtual private network with tenant performance isolation. And this is what an application communication pattern might look like. And you need to somehow translate this, multiple of these, onto a physical infrastructure. And this is not particularly easy to figure out how you do that. So you need network abstractions, which enable tenants to provide, to represent diverse application requirements effectively, and for the service provider to map these requirements efficiently onto the virtualized infrastructure. And the key challenge here is how we manage the limited network quality of service resources efficiently and dynamically. Because as things change, as tenants come and go, as they change their network requirements, you need to be able to change your infrastructure automatically. The next challenge is energy proportional networking. I mentioned this before. This is this particular graph just shows, it's from Green Touch, Thierry Klein from Bell Labs, had this piece of data where what you see is that the traffic is growing very rapidly and the energy efficiency of the networking infrastructure is growing extremely slowly, about 15% a year or so. This is a study that we did where the traffic has variations throughout the day. That green line represents, this flat green line represents the power consumption. So the power consumption doesn't change at all with the variation in traffic. You really want it to be able to track the traffic. And so the work that we have started doing in this space is really a complex optimization problem. You need to figure out what are the knobs, what are the energy knobs in a network system. And these are things like you can turn off individual ports, individual line cards, individual switches, and in a way that you can still maintain your traffic matrix through the network. And this is some work that we did which leverages these energy knobs across a network and then programs the network for energy savings. And you can do extremely well even with some basic techniques. We have shown that we are able to cut down the energy cost of the network by 60% or so. And then the final challenge is automation. And this is really key to achieving cloud scale operations cost effectively. And recently we've been seeing these controller-based architectures come up in the system. Software-defined networking is one area that has received a lot of attention in this space. And really what we're trying to do here is build, this is a complex network control system with multiple control modules interacting with each other. And what we want to be able to do is build an app store for these networking management apps on top, where you should be able to just plug these network apps in, and they should function in a non-conflicting way. This is not particularly easy. You can think about the quality of service and the energy management one, for example. They have diametrically opposite goals in some ways. And what we're trying to do is figure out a network utility based methodology where each of these completely diverse modules can express their requirements with the same currency and use that to try and mediate between these different modules to provide ultimately maximize the overall system value. So in summary, lots and lots of research opportunities. This is applied research. We're trying to sort of get things moving in a flexible way such that you don't have to know exactly how the traffic and the applications will change. You will have to live with your current hardware for a while, and while the hardware innovations are coming in, you should be able to still use this network control system in a way to automate operations such that you you continue to scale, you continue to be able to provide performance guarantees for a large number of entities that you didn't plan for originally. And one of the sort of mantras that we have is that you have to build these systems to learn anything. You know, simulations are sort of the first step. We do a lot of that. But every time we've taken the steps to actually build something, implement something, we learn so much. We realize, you know, where our assumptions are wrong. And the dynamic behaviors often are not captured in, you know, well-defined models. So this is one thing that I really, truly believe in. Designing for failure is actually very important. We don't tend to do that. And extensibility and flexibility have become extremely important. I have a long list of collaborators here because this is work that we've been doing. A lot of them are at HP Labs, and some of them are in other places as well. Thank you, and I'm sorry about the technical difficulties that we had in the beginning and messed up the timing.